Welcome back to Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today is Friday, March 21st, 2019. And let's find out what's going on in the world of bodybuilding and fitness. Once you have kids, you start to realize how to prioritize all the things in your life that are actually important, while also phasing out a lot of the nonsense at the same time. And based on the way she's been getting after it lately, it seems like second-year standout Alyssa Isley has that whole priorities things figured out pretty well. Earlier this week, we had some conversations with our people inside the Eisley camp who told us that she's planning to compete at the St. Louis and Omaha Pro Shows this year. But the real twist here is that she's planning to do it in women's bodybuilding. To be honest, I don't know what is crazier, the fact that she has 5 kids or the thought of her somehow finding time to juggle all that and still put enough quality muscle to step it up to women's bodybuilding. But as long as she sticks with what got her there in the first place, there's no doubt in my mind that she'll figure out a way to make it all work. When I was growing up, seeing the finished product of my favorite athletes in the old muscle magazines was a really cool experience, but there was always a part of me that wished I could see what happened behind the lens and behind the page. Well, this week, Cedric McMillan gave us just that. 2 days after his brilliant second-place performance at the Arnold Australia, Cedric decided to give his fans an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at this iconic photo shoot on the beautiful beaches of the Australian coast. Watching a guy like Cedric move through his poses in a setting that makes you realize that he's one of the most underrated physique artists of his generation, and maybe even of all time. So I think it's important for all of us to pay attention to something this incredible while we still have the chance, because generational athletes like this just don't come along every day. From my experience, one of the hardest things to do as an athlete is knowing when it's time to step back, take a break, and to start to focus on other things in life. Athletes are just so hardwired to just go, 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 that sometimes they just keep beating their head against the wall without realizing that they're doing more harm than good. That's why I have to applaud fitness standout Emma Pavely for having enough foresight to know it was time to shut things down for a while. Recently, Pavely announced that she was planning to take a step back from bodybuilding to pursue some other interests on her YouTube channel. Life is too short not to know what you want to do. So if she's being called in another direction, I say more power to her. And if she ever does decide she wants to get back up on stage, someone with her talent won't have any problems getting themselves back into the groove. Sometimes all it takes is a little bit of midweek arm action and a pump from outer space to get you over hump day and onto the downhill cruise to the weekend. But if you don't believe me, just go ask Terrance Ruffin. Yesterday we saw a new arm training clip from the classic physique all-star who seems to be cruising along through his early part of his season just fine based on what I've seen. Sometimes it feels as though Ruffin gets lost in the shuffle since we have so many classic physique guys floating around in the division now. But the fact remains that he's really a unique talent who I personally would love to see compete. As of right now, he hasn't given any official word about what his plans are for this season yet, but history tells us that he's usually a mid to late summer kind of guy. So I wouldn't rule out a show like the Tampa Pro being his first stop. Stay tuned. Anyone old enough to remember what it was like when Ali stepped away from boxing at the height of his career will attest to the fact that it was one of the biggest stories in sports. Here you had someone who would go on to become the greatest athlete of all time in his sport, walking away in the prime of his career over a legal issue. Boxing fans were robbed of Ali in his prime, and to a certain extent it almost feels like we're hitting that point with Hadi Choopan. With the Olympia title up for grabs this year, it almost feels wrong not to give this guy a shot to prove he's one of the best in the world. But then we're back to that whole legal issue again, which doesn't seem to have any clear end in sight. I'm not saying Hadi Choopan is the Muhammad Ali of bodybuilding. All I'm saying is that robbing a great athlete of their prime years sucks for sports fans everywhere. And I wish it didn't have to be that way. And that does it for yet another edition of Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, reminding you to always be true to your passions. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.